When Celeste first started talking about inner clarity, I thought it was just another phase. My name's Jordan Rayner. I'm 38 years old, and I live in Pasadena, California. I'm a commercial architect. My wife at the time, Celeste, is 36. She runs a boutique interior styling studio that's pretty successful now, but we started with nothing. Literally nothing. We met in our 20s when we were both broke, renting a drafty little studio apartment in Echo Park. Our bed was just a mattress on the floor, and the kitchen sink always dripped. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and back then, that felt like everything. We used to lie on that old mattress and make up dream blueprints of the life we wanted, her sketching fabric swatches, me adding roof lines and light angles on napkins. We always talked about building a home. Not just a house, but a life. We meant it. Now, we live in a beautifully restored mid-century house with warm cedar accents and floor-to-ceiling glass panels we installed ourselves. The kind of home we once could only fantasize about. We have a 5-year-old son, Theo, who keeps his plastic dinosaurs lined up on the window ledge and calls every salad leaf tree food. I tuck him in at night, and he always asks me the same thing: can you build me a spaceship tomorrow, Dad? I always tell him, of course, buddy. First thing in the morning. I thought we were good. I thought we were happy. Then Celeste started that art therapy workshop. It sounded harmless enough at first. She said it was just a space to explore deeper creativity and emotional honesty. I didn't ask many questions. I wanted to be supportive. It was mostly women, from what I gathered. Divorced women. A lot of them. They talked about things like energy healing and creative emancipation and what it meant to be truly seen. I figured it was just an outlet. But then she started coming home with phrases I'd never heard from her before. One night, while we were brushing our teeth, she looked at me in the mirror and said, "Do you ever wonder if we just played it too safe too early?" I remember freezing mid-brush, trying to figure out if I was supposed to answer or just nod. Another time, she said, "What if we missed out on really living?" At first, I thought she was just reflecting. Everyone gets reflective in their 30s. But slowly, the air between us started to change. Our conversations turned shallow. Our silences grew louder. She stopped holding my hand when we walked down to Theo's preschool in the morning. Her hugs became one-armed. She didn't laugh at my dumb jokes anymore, just smiled like it pained her to do it. She started seeing those women more often. Their names started coming up: Raya, Denise, someone named Ren. I didn't know these people, but I knew how they made her feel. Free. Untethered. Like she didn't owe anyone anything. I'd come home from a job site to find Theo watching cartoons and Celeste on the patio with a glass of wine and a journal full of half-drawn mandalas. When I asked how her day was, she'd say, "It's not about doing anymore. It's about being." And me? I was still in the doing. Paying bills. Reviewing permits. Picking Theo up when her being ran long. The distance wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was quiet. Soft. The kind of unraveling you don't see until something's already come undone. One night, after Theo fell asleep, she told me she might go on a weekend retreat in Big Sur. Just a reset. "Everyone's going," she said. I looked at her. "You need a reset. From what?" She didn't answer. She just stared past me, like she was trying to remember something she hadn't lived yet. It was a Thursday night when everything cracked wide open. We had just come home from a gallery opening in Highland Park. One of those conceptual installations Celeste had been into lately, half projection, half sound bath. I didn't get it, but I stood by her side and nodded politely while she spoke to the artists. On the drive home, she barely said a word, just stared out the passenger window while Theo slept in the back seat, his head leaning against his car seat like he'd spent the night doing something way more exhausting than kindergarten. Back at home, I got Theo settled, changed into sweats, and went to wash up. When I came out, Celeste was standing in the living room, still in her black silk dress, barefoot on the hardwood. Her arms were crossed tight, like she was bracing for something. That should have been my first sign. "Jordan," she said, not looking at me. I paused. "What's up?" She looked up then, and her face was already halfway to crying, even though no tears had come yet. That faraway look again, the one she'd worn more and more lately, like the person she used to be was already somewhere else. "I think I need a separation," she said softly. For a second, I didn't move. Just stood there, blinking. "You what?" "I need to find myself," she continued, her voice trying to sound calm, like this was just a regular adult conversation. "Outside of being a wife. Outside of being Theo's mom. I don't know who I am anymore." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. "I love you," she added quickly, "but I've been living inside a version of myself that doesn't feel true. I need space to figure out what I want. Who I am. What I've buried." She looked so sure, like she'd already rehearsed this in her head 100 times. I swallowed hard and forced myself to breathe. "If that's what you need," I said slowly, "then maybe I can help you see what's been hiding in plain sight." She blinked, caught off guard, like she'd expected yelling or pleading, or at least one hard question. But I gave her none of that. Instead, I watched her start to back away from our life like she was slipping off a coat that didn't fit anymore. The next day, she packed a small bag and moved into a friend's loft downtown. One of the women from her workshop, of course. Theo didn't understand what was happening, not really. We told him Mommy was taking a break to do some art stuff. He asked if she'd be back by the weekend. I told him I didn't know. That night, after I got him to bed, I sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and started organizing. Finances, passwords, copies of our mortgage documents. I didn't cry. I didn't drink. I just started building a paper trail. If Celeste was stepping into some new version of herself, I needed to be sure I didn't get erased in the process. Or worse, Theo didn't. It was Dylan who tipped me off. We weren't exactly friends, just acquaintances from school pickup. Our kids both went to the same preschool, and we'd traded a few polite nods in the hallway over the months. But a week after Celeste moved out, Dylan approached me in the parking lot, hands deep in his jacket pockets, eyes darting around like he wasn't sure he should be talking to me. "I heard," he said after a pause, "about you and Celeste." I gave a short nod. "Yeah." He shifted on his feet. "My ex-wife's in that same art therapy group. Same retreat, same wine nights. I don't want to overstep, but just keep your eyes open, man. That crowd, whatever it is they're chasing, it gets toxic real fast." I waited for him to say more, but he just gave me a sad look, patted my shoulder, and walked off. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just about self-discovery. That night, after Theo went to sleep, I logged into our smart home account. I told myself it was for maintenance. I even said the words out loud. Just a system check. But what I did was install a discreet security camera, just one, tucked inside a decorative air purifier in our home office. The camera was motion-activated. Quiet. I told myself I was protecting Theo. But the truth was, I needed to know what was happening when I wasn't in the picture. A week later, Celeste came by to grab some books and a few things from her studio. She brought 2 friends with her, women I didn't recognize. They poured wine, laughed loudly, and floated through the house like it was some Airbnb they'd rented for the weekend. Later that night, I reviewed the footage. The 3 of them were sitting in the office with glasses of red wine. The camera picked up every word. "Technically, nothing's happened yet," Celeste said, giggling as she leaned back in the desk chair, spinning slightly. "But Michael? Oh my God. You should see the way he talks about energy. It's like foreplay for your soul." The others burst into laughter. My jaw clenched. I played the clip again, just to make sure I heard it right. Michael. I remembered the name from a flyer Celeste had left on the counter weeks ago. A sculptor from Silver Lake. He'd led some kind of body awareness workshop at the retreat center. I looked him up. Married. 2 kids. Known in the LA art scene for living his truth and refusing to follow societal structures. Translation: sleeps with whatever moves and calls it spiritual. I went back into our shared drive. Found her workshop calendar. Michael's name was listed twice next to creative partner circles. It wasn't physical, yet, but I'd been an architect long enough to know how to spot structural weakness. This wasn't just a crack. This was foundation rot. From that point on, I documented everything. I took screenshots of texts she accidentally left visible on our family iPad. I downloaded transaction reports from our joint account. Noticed the Venmo charges labeled session fee with ambiguous emojis. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was building something. I created a folder on my desktop called Contingency. Inside it, I organized footage from the office cam, credit card statements, a breakdown of household expenses going back for years, copies of emails that showed I had been the sole financial contributor to our renovation loan. I didn't tell anyone, not even my brother, who called once a week to check in, but really just wanted to gossip. This wasn't about revenge. It was about survival. Because if Celeste was going to rewrite our story with pastel paint and spiritual euphemisms, I needed to make sure Theo and I weren't just footnotes in the final draft. The first meeting with my lawyer was quiet, focused, no theatrics. Her name was Elise Chun, mid-40s, sharp as glass, calm like a surgeon. She didn't waste time asking how I felt, just slid a legal pad in front of me and said, "Tell me everything." So I did. I walked her through the last 6 months, Celeste's sudden interest in spiritual identity, the retreat circles, the Michael situation, the footage, the finances. I laid out my evidence in organized folders, just like I had designed them, labeled, time-stamped, indisputable. Elise took notes, asked only 2 questions the whole time. "Do you want sole custody of your son?" "Yes." "And do you want to keep the house?" "Yes." She nodded once, satisfied. "Then we don't make a scene. We make a wall." Within 48 hours, the strategy was in motion. First, we moved on the finances. I transferred all business funds from our joint account into a secure LLC account under my company's name. Elise made sure I left just enough behind to cover 1 month of household expenses. No more. Nothing Celeste could accuse me of hiding or withholding. Just a clean pivot. Second, we filed the divorce petition. Quietly, preemptively. Elise attached a copy of Celeste's recent withdrawals, a timeline of her absences, and a brief, but clear, summary of her emotional involvement with Michael. No accusations, just facts. She also attached a notarized affidavit from Dylan, the ex-husband who had warned me. Turns out Michael had slept with his wife too, during that same retreat cycle. Dylan's statement was blunt, honest, and damning. Third, I reached out to Michael's wife. Her name was Sabine. French accent, calm voice. She wasn't surprised to hear from me, only relieved. I've been waiting for someone else to finally see it, she said. He always frames it as creative awakening. It's just old-fashioned cheating wrapped in art school vocabulary. She sent me screenshots from her end, text messages between Michael and Celeste, blurry photos from a retreat dinner, one very telling calendar invite labeled Private Studio Sync. Elise added it to the folder. With everything moving fast, I took care of one final piece, Theo. I had been watching listings quietly for weeks and found a duplex 3 blocks from his school. Small yard, 2 bedrooms, no shared walls. I bought it in cash under my business entity and scheduled the utilities to transfer the day after the divorce was filed. Then I updated Theo's school paperwork, new address, new emergency contacts, and a brief note under parental custody status that simply read, pending legal review. I didn't tell Celeste. Not yet. She was still staying downtown, reclaiming her rhythm, posting filtered photos of sunsets and coffee shops on her private Instagram account, smiling with her chin tilted like someone in a magazine ad for herbal tea. She thought I was frozen in grief, but I wasn't. I was moving, quietly, decisively, across the board. Because this wasn't about getting even. It wasn't about pride. It was about Theo. About making sure that when the dust settled, he wouldn't be the one left without a place to land. It was almost funny how confidently she walked into mediation. Celeste arrived in linen pants and a beige silk blouse, her hair swept up in that soft, effortless way that probably took 40 minutes to style. She greeted the clerk like she was checking in for a facial, smiled at me like none of this mattered, like the last 10 years were a scrapbook and we were here to gently unglue a few pages. I just want this to be respectful, she said to the mediator before we even sat down. I said nothing, just slid the folder Elise and I had prepared across the table. Celeste opened it, glanced through the first few pages, the asset list, income breakdown, footage excerpts, and her face changed. Barely, but enough. That blink too fast moment, the quiet inhale, the realization. We had filed first. We had documented everything. The home, in my name. Mortgage payments, traced back to my business account. Custody request, already flagged as 70/30, with detailed notes on her recent absenteeism and the inconsistencies in her statements. And then there was Michael. Celeste tried to push past it at first, clearing her throat and flipping pages like the documents didn't matter. But when Elise slid out the statement from Sabine, the screenshots, the calendar invite, the photo of Michael and Celeste standing far too close by a fire pit, she went pale. I never cheated, she said stiffly. No one used that word, Elise replied calmly. But emotional abandonment and third-party influence are relevant in custody arrangements. Celeste's eyes flicked to mine. I looked right back. This wasn't the woman I married. Not anymore. By the time we got to the settlement terms, she was visibly shaken. The house. Awarded to me. She wasn't on the deed. Never had been. Spousal support? None. Elise had outlined that Celeste had chosen to reduce her income voluntarily by pursuing emotional clarity, and courts didn't reward that kind of self-inflicted financial withdrawal. Custody? Split, but weighted in my favor, based on structure, consistency, and residence proximity to Theo's school. She'd get weekends and holidays in a rotating schedule. Celeste finally broke when the mediator confirmed it. You're saying? I don't get the house. I don't get anything. The room was still. Then she looked at me. Eyes red, mascara just starting to smudge. Why didn't you fight for me? She whispered. I didn't flinch. I did, I said. But you were already fighting against us. She didn't respond. Just sat back like someone had pulled the floor out from under her. When the paperwork was signed and the session ended, she left without saying goodbye. Just gathered her things with shaky hands and walked out into the hallway like she didn't know where to go. Elise gave me a small nod. You okay? I nodded. Yeah. I left the building with 70/30 custody, the house, and the certainty that I had done what I needed to do, not out of anger, but out of necessity. Celeste got a modest settlement, her car, and every weekend to try and remember who she used to be. Me? I got a clean slate, and a son who still wanted me to build him a spaceship. It was 3 months later when she called. Her name still popped up on my phone the same way it used to. Celeste, Theo's mom. I stood in the kitchen, halfway through slicing strawberries for Theo's lunchbox. I let it ring once, twice. Then I picked up. Her voice cracked before she even got a full word out. Jordan, long pause. A shaky breath. I didn't know who else to call. I didn't say anything. Just waited. Michael's gone, she finally said. He disappeared. Blocked me. Sabine kicked him out, apparently. The group? Everyone just kind of moved on. She sniffed. I thought I was finding myself. I thought I was healing. But now I just feel stupid. Empty. She didn't say it directly, but I knew what she meant. The vision boards. The mandala journals. The wine nights that turned into whispered flirtations and ego strokes disguised as enlightenment. The freedom that came with no responsibility had finally come due. I can't sleep, she said. I don't even know what day it is sometimes. I thought letting go of structure would make me feel alive, but all it did was take away the rails. Still, I said nothing. Not out of cruelty. I just didn't have it in me to hand her comfort wrapped in nostalgia. She tried again. I miss the way Theo used to look at me. I miss the three of us, even when things were hard. I miss being someone you could count on. That one stung a little. Not because it wasn't true, but because it was. I leaned against the counter and finally spoke, my voice low, steady. Sometimes what we're running from isn't a life. It's ourselves. The silence on the other end was thick. I know, she whispered. I just didn't see it until it was too late. Theo came into the kitchen in his pajamas, dragging a Lego tower the height of his chest. Dad. I added wings, he shouted proudly. I smiled and bent down to examine his creation. That's incredible, buddy. Can it fly to the moon? He nodded seriously. Only if you help with the engine. Celeste must have heard his voice. Is he okay? She asked quietly. He's thriving, I said. Another long pause. Thank you for taking care of him, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked out the window. The garden we'd once planted together had been turned into a simple patch of wildflowers. Low maintenance. Resilient. Still blooming. You don't have to thank me, I replied. He's my son. She didn't argue. Just said a soft goodbye and hung up. That night, after Theo was asleep, I sat on the couch, listening to the quiet hum of the dishwasher. No gallery invites. No brunch debates about backsplash color palettes. No manic energy. Just calm. I thought about who I used to be. The man who held his breath every time Celeste started a sentence with what if. That man was gone. Not bitter. Not broken. Just still. Grounded. And finally, exactly who my son needed me to be. Theo turned 6 on a Saturday in early spring. The weather cooperated, sunny, breezy, the kind of day that practically invites you to forgive things. Not that I planned to. We kept it simple. A backyard party. Just a few neighborhood kids, burgers on the grill, bubbles, sidewalk chalk, balloons tied to lawn chairs. Nothing curated, nothing filtered. Just messy joy. The kind Celeste used to say was too loud for her nervous system. Theo didn't care. He was running around in a cardboard crown, chasing a bubble machine like it owed him money. Celeste showed up late. Of course. She stepped through the gate in a sundress and platform sandals, carrying a square gift bag, and that familiar smile, tight, a little too polished, like she wasn't sure what room she was walking into. It wasn't judgment I felt. It was detachment. Like watching someone you used to know wave from across a train platform. Theo ran up to her, beaming. Mom. She knelt, hugged him, handed him the gift. I watched him tear it open right there in the grass. A craft kit. Beads and string. It's for making energy bracelets, she said, with a hopeful smile. He blinked at it, then looked back at the bubble machine and ran off without a word. Celeste stood slowly and walked over to me by the grill. You throw a nice party, she said, eyeing the spread. I shrugged. Kids don't need much. Just sugar and a reason to yell. We didn't say anything else until after the last guest left. The backyard was littered with popped balloons and paper plates. I was gathering trash when she walked over, barefoot now, holding her heels in one hand. Can I have 5 minutes? She asked. Just 5. I nodded. She led me over to the edge of the yard, near the little flower bed we once planted together, her idea, back then. We'd argued about mulch for a week. It still looked okay. A few hardy things managed to grow despite the neglect. She looked down at the soil, then back at me. I made a mistake, she said. I didn't say anything. I thought I was chasing freedom. I thought I was too confined. But the life we had? It wasn't a cage. I just didn't know how to live in something real. I watched her for a moment. Her shoulders were slouched, her face bare. No makeup, no performance. I see now what I gave up, she added quietly. And I'm sorry. I nodded once. I know. She stepped closer. Do you think? I stopped her with a gentle hand. Only one of us stayed to face what we chose. She froze. I hope you find what you're still looking for, I added. Then I handed her a Tupperware container with a slice of leftover cake. Vanilla with blue frosting, Theo's request. She took it with both hands, like it was something sacred. And I turned and walked back inside, where Theo was waiting with his Lego spaceship and a juice box. The door clicked shut behind me. It was a Thursday afternoon, nothing remarkable. Just another school pickup, Theo's Spider-Man lunchbox swinging from my hand as I waited near the playground gate with the other parents. I was answering emails on my phone when I heard his voice. Dad, Dad, look what I drew. He ran up holding a crumpled sheet of construction paper. It was a crayon drawing of two stick figures, one big, one small, standing next to a huge rocket ship with the word home scribbled in bright orange letters above it. That's me and you, he explained. And the rocket's not going to space anymore. It just flies around our house and plays music. I smiled. A very practical redesign. As we walked toward the car, his teacher caught up to us. Miss Alston, mid-30s, kind eyes, always a little breathless. She stopped me with a hand on my arm. I just wanted to say something real quick, she said. I paused. Everything okay? She nodded. More than okay. I don't know if you realize how much Theo talks about you. I raised an eyebrow. Oh. She smiled gently. He says you're his hero. That you build ships and lunches in safe places. He tells everyone you're his best friend. I think some of the other kids are jealous. My throat tightened unexpectedly. Miss Alston continued. Whatever's happened between you and his mom, thank you for being so present. It shows. I nodded slowly, unsure what to say. Thank you. That means a lot. Theo tugged my sleeve. Can we make spaghetti tonight? But with the meatballs that look like planets? Absolutely, I said. That night, as I tucked him into bed, he handed me his favorite dinosaur, Toby, a faded green plastic triceratops. Keep him tonight, he whispered. So you don't get lonely. I swallowed hard and nodded. Thanks, buddy. That's very thoughtful. He was asleep in minutes, one hand still curled around the corner of his blanket like he was holding on to something bigger than cotton. I walked out into the hallway and stood for a moment outside his door, just listening to him breathe. This wasn't the ending I had imagined when I first met Celeste. Back then, I pictured dinner parties and anniversaries, vacations with Theo playing in the sand while we held hands under an umbrella. But what I got instead was something quieter, more honest. Celeste had chased noise, chaos wrapped in poetry. A life where rules didn't apply as long as it felt authentic. I built stillness, not out of spite, out of necessity, out of love. I walked into the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and looked around at the mess of Legos on the floor and a half-finished school project on the table. Crayons scattered. An astronaut sticker stuck to the fridge. And I realized I didn't just survive the collapse. I became exactly who my son needed. The kind of man who shows up every single day without needing a spotlight to prove it. That was the real triumph. Quiet, but lasting.